Where are we at with all of Trump's lawsuits? I'll fill you in. This one involves Judge Aileen Cannon out of Florida, with Jack Smith taking a shot at her. Nice try, not going to work. Welcome to Doug in Exile. I'm Doug TeNapel. This is where the happy patriots are, and this is where we watch the news. So I'd love to have you subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Let's get to this article from the Daily Beast. Now, this is going to be an anti-Trump, anti-Aileen Cannon article, but rest assured, they will hoist themselves on their own petard by the end. That means they'll commit hara-kiri. I keep using foreign expressions to try to clarify things, and it doesn't work. Jack Smith's subtle shot at Trump Mar-a-Lago Judge Aileen Cannon. Federal prosecutors work on the Donald Trump Mar-a-Lago documents case are trying to convince Judge Aileen Cannon by pointing to cases she worked on at the DOJ. So this is an interesting role where the Trump team is trying to turn it back on Jack Smith, to go from them being the ones indicted to turning around and making a claim and a case against Jack Smith. And the case was once worked on by Aileen Cannon. Here we go. Faced with the federal judge in the Donald Trump Mar-a-Lago classified documents case, who keeps making bizarre rulings clearly favoring the man who appointed her. Now, that is the Daily Beast's absolute Democrat spin, saying that her stuff is clearly favoring and that they're bizarre rulings. Just so you know, that's their spin on it. It's not true. What they mean by a bizarre ruling that clearly favors Trump, they're just not used to having a judge that isn't a hardened, Soros-appointed Democrat. So see, to them, this is madness, going, how come she's not acting like a complete Marxist politicized judge? She's acting normal. Oh, see, to them, normalcy is to follow their marching orders from Central Command. Federal prosecutors have restored to citing case law that Aileen Cannon should know. For one major reason, she worked on it herself. This is their big gotcha, going, oh, you should know this law. You wrote it. But even still, they will hoist themselves on their own petard. Department of Justice Special Prosecutor Jack Smith fired off a quiet shot across the bow at Cannon in a recent court filing, a filing that seeks to block Trump's latest ploy to morph this criminal case into some kind of wild goose chase against the Biden administration. It's going to work too. I think if this ever goes to a higher court than these nickel and dime, Jack Smith guys, Trump could have a case. Although the Trump team has already received 1.3 million pages of evidence, the former president's defense lawyers are trying to bolster their clients' conspiracy-laden claims that this investigation is just a White House-led, quote, selective prosecution, unquote. That's the phrase that we're going with, that they're talking about. That's one they're trying to weasel around in this article. Selective prosecution. Selective prosecution. Because it's obvious that Trump is the victim of selective prosecution, if there ever was one, right? 5 indictments, they all come after he announces that he's running for president. I think he's got a good case. In search of, quote, political bias, they've asked Cannon to force the Department of Justice to turn over all kinds of documents under the guise of so-called, quote, Brady rules. I'm unclear on what that is, which require the government to disclose exculpatory information to a person charged with a crime. In short, it's a fishing expedition to delay the trial. Well, that's good for us. I'm all for that. And as it happens, Cannon herself worked on a case that established some clear restrictions on the kind of legal deep sea voyage. This article is so poorly written by the Daily Beast that I'm surprised anyone could actually understand it. He's using so much metaphor, trying to just hardcore make a case. I'm like, dude, just give me the facts. Real journalists will go, look, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. This guy's trying to load it up with so much bias to convince you. Okay. Back when she was a federal prosecutor in South Florida, Cannon worked on a case involving a 2015 sting operation that caught 2 men who planned to rob a fake stash house of $1 million of cocaine, showing up with 2 AK-47s in their pickup truck. These guys showed up, it was a sting operation. And they're saying it was selective because the kinds of people that tended to show up, I'll read it so I don't get into trouble. One of them appealed his conviction by claiming he was subject to an unfair, quote, selective prosecution, unquote, on the grounds that the vast majority of stash house stings nab blacks and Hispanics. So he was probably, I don't know anything about this defendant, but he was probably black or Hispanic, got caught on a sting. And he goes, this is selective prosecution because you know that if you set up sting houses, you will tend to get blacks and Hispanics. That's the charge. I'm not weighing in on if that's true or not. That's none of my business. Only that there is such a thing as selective prosecution and that Judge Aileen Cannon worked on that term. Okay. Cannon had already been elevated to the bench when her old team won the case in 2021. By the way, that means that she was off that case. So they're trying to tie her to that case to make her guilty, saying she's somehow compromised. No, she was off the case by the time it went through. She was already a higher judge. With the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals pointing to long established precedent that sets a quote demanding burden to make the kind of claim, particularly when trying to set off a document search for imaginary proof. Now that Trump is making a similarly spectacular claim, Smith's prosecutors have reminded Judge Cannon that her hard-won victory is the very reason she should rule against the former president. Defendants can't just demand a government document dump by pointing to some flimsy notion of selective prosecution, the DOJ argued. Again, they're just loading it up, just declaring it flimsy. I'll give you evidence that it's not flimsy. How about he has 5 indictments within a 6-month period after he announces that he's running for president, and other prongs of attack of trying to get his name kicked off of documents, all in Democrat-run judges, Democrat juries, Democrat jurisdictions. In one case with Engeron, not even under a trial, just gets a judge. He's already declared guilty. In E. Jean Carroll's case, they pass a special law to allow them to go back and remove the statute of limitations to get him for sexual misconduct. How about that? I mean, it's clear. This is selective prosecution. Now look at Hunter Biden. Talk about selective leniency. He was caught not paying taxes, cheating on his taxes. He hasn't paid millions of dollars with taxes, owning a firearm, taking a picture of himself with a firearm while being a felon, while on drugs, under drug charges, smoking crack on camera, underage prostitutes on camera. I'm just saying, you can go off on all these guys. I think they've got a great case in this one on Trump getting selective prosecution. Let's hope that Judge Aileen Cannon helps turn the tables on Jack Smith and we jack it right back in on him. Because that's what this, see, the law is a weird thing. It cuts both ways. Once you set a precedent, you don't get to control. Even Aileen Cannon doesn't get to control it. They can just start pushing it into service and pushing it into service. And I hope they push this one under service and at the very least get a huge delay. Trump should go for selective prosecution, get a huge delay just to make Jack Smith angry. I'm Doug in exile.